Hi, everyone. This is Peter Gordon from New York Financial Organizers. I'm here with Ron Gold of LeanOnWe. LeanOnWe is a unique company that I call a matchmaker between home health care aides and individuals who need help in the home. And Ron is going to tell us a little bit about his business, and I'll be chiming in every now and then about my experience with him and their wonderful service. So, hi, Ron. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me here.
Sure, my pleasure. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and Lean On We?
Okay, let me tell you a little bit about my story and how I got into LeanOnWe. And I think you'll find that most people who get into the elder care service world, they have a story. They have a personal reason why they got into the business. For me, I had a successful career on Wall Street. I also was an avid athlete, an avid cyclist, and I went for a ride with a group of friends 8.5 years ago. It's something I did regularly. And on this Saturday morning, we were almost done with our ride, and all of a sudden an SUV came veering directly at me. And I was immediately medevac to the hospital. I spent 2 months in ICU, another 3 months in rehab, and I recovered, but I'm paralyzed now. And obviously that changed my life in many, many ways. And it certainly changed my outlook on life. And I was looking to do something other than my finance job for some time. I didn't really know what it was. And then I got thrown into this world where previously my only exposure to home care had been through my parents. And I was helping them with their needs. But now I realized I needed help every day. And I had a lot of questions about why there were so few options. And really, we only had an option. Now that I needed home care every day, I could either choose to go through an agency, which is one of the prevailing options, but that would be expensive and I'd have very little choice. And the caregiver doesn't earn much money, or I could hire someone directly, but then I'd really know very little about the caregiver. And my wife and I realized that there could be a middle ground, and that is we understand why most people want to hire a caregiver on their own because it's less expensive, and also the caregiver earns everything that you pay them, and it's a much more empowering direct relationship between you and the aide. But people need to know something. They need to have a background check. These are people coming into their parents' homes, and what we did is we came up with a system where we would verify references and we'd do a fingerprint check and we'd shoot a video. And the other big thing is we're there for backup and replacement because very few people are willing to hire an aide without having the peace of mind of knowing that your parent or other loved one won't be stuck.
You know, Ron, I could agree with so much of what you said from my own experience as a person who has hired Lean On We for my clients. And there were times where we didn't have an aide come because of a personal problem that they had. I was able to call Lean On We and find a replacement within a couple of hours. Recently, I had a client whose aide needed to take 2 weeks off. And again, I was able to call Lean On We, and the next day I was able to replace them with some very, very qualified person. So Ron, you know, in the situation we're currently in and with COVID-19, I'm curious if you could tell us about how you guys are dealing with that and how it's affecting your business.
It is a very good question, and clearly it's affecting our business dramatically. It affects everybody around us. Of course, we've all experienced friends and relatives who have either hopefully just caught the disease and nothing worse, but it's been really crazy. And in terms of home care, it's pretty much as you'd expect. Both the families that end up having a caregiver in their home and the caregivers are just very apprehensive. They're apprehensive about everything, and they want to do whatever they can to mitigate their exposure. So I guess there are a couple things that go on. One, if someone doesn't feel they need care acutely, they decide to see if they can do well enough alone and do without care for a period of time. But for most of the others, live-in help becomes a very compelling option. And you may ask why live-in, because it may not jump out at you, but if you give it a second thought and you think about it, when somebody is coming in for live-in help, they're staying in your home. And that solves a couple problems. It solves a problem for the care recipient because now there's much less traffic going on in their home, and they can take solace in knowing that that's the case. But really, it's also very much for the caregiver, because now they don't have to worry about who's taking those other shifts. And that's a big concern that they have, because they know they are there just sitting still. And it turns out that live-in help is generally less expensive, and sometimes dramatically less expensive. And the LeanOnWe matching model is well suited for live-in. And that's because what we do is we connect you with a caregiver you hire privately and directly, thereby avoiding the agency. You end up paying less, but the caregiver is actually earning more. And unlike in an agency situation, minimum wage and time and a half rarely come into play.
Right, and we experienced that with a client that we had 2 live-in aides for, we used I think pay.com, and so they were on the books and had taxes taken out, and they were certainly paid well above the minimum wage, and it worked out very, very well. The paperwork,
Very glad to hear that.
but it's fine. And actually, I have a relatively new client that is using LeanOnWe, and I was like, oh, I don't recall referring them to you. And they said, oh, you did it. We found them on our own. So you're getting out there. Going forward, where do you think once we come out of where we are now and go into the new normal, where do you think that's going to take LeanOnWe?
Well, I think there are a lot of changes in the way business is done in our society as a result of what's going on. And we're trying to understand that and see how it reflects on our business. So for example, one trend is, I think people are generally going to be much more fearful about putting a loved one in an assisted living or a nursing rehab. And I think that's going to color their decisions going forward. Clearly, one thing that works well for your business and for my business as people are at home. Another thing we think about is, right now we're doing this via Zoom, and so much of America is being done, business is being done via Zoom. And maybe there's a way for us to onboard our caregivers in a virtual way, whereas previously we've always met them directly. And maybe with that would give us the ability to expand geographically more seamlessly. And that's something we're thinking about as well.
That's really interesting. I've worked with other agencies that have attempted to use video and iMacs or iPads, and that seemed to me to be more sizzle than actual steak. And they were really concerned with the technology as opposed to the caregiver. And really the most important piece of the puzzle is the caregiver. But then the technology can be added, and it could be really helpful in providing the service. And I know from what I'll be doing when I get back to seeing my clients is making sure they do have Zoom and they have access to it. We've actually started doing it without being able to see them, but there's some clients that they need a little more hands-on. So I couldn't agree more. Well, I want to thank you so much for participating in this. I hope people see it and they get a lot of great information. I'm going to put Ron's info on the last slide on the screen. And if you have any questions, feel free to call Ron, or you could always contact me at New York Financial Organizers. So thanks, Ron. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Peter. And if anybody needs our phone number, it's 844-532-6669, or of course, LeanOnWe.com. That's we because everybody needs a team to lean on.
Thanks a lot. Take care now.
Thanks.